Jessica stood in her kitchen, staring at her phone as the $10,800 charge glowed like a warning light. Her mother stood across from her, waving a hand as if nothing mattered. "You don't need the money anyway," she said sharply. Jessica swallowed hard. "Mom, that's my credit card. You didn't ask me." Her mother laughed as if she had heard a silly joke. "Don't be dramatic, Jessica. We're family. We share things." Jessica felt something break quietly inside her. It wasn't shock anymore. It was the final push after years of being the one who always carried everyone else. Her mother settled into a chair like she lived there. "Megan needed this vacation. She's been stressed since the breakup," she insisted. Jessica sighed. "Mom, she dated him for 6 months. He only asked her to get a job." Her mother lifted her chin. "Megan is sensitive. You know that." Jessica shook her head slowly, feeling her patience slipping. "You used my card without permission. That's fraud." But her mother only smiled. "Stop exaggerating. Your father and I are going to. We deserve a break." Jessica stared at her, wondering when she had become nothing more than a bank account. "Jessica, you own 2 houses," her mother continued, her tone shifting. "You make good money at that computer job. Meanwhile, your father's back keeps him from working, and I've been holding this family together." Jessica rubbed her forehead. "I have expenses. I have bills." Her mother leaned back. "We sacrificed everything for you girls. Isn't it time you give back?" Jessica felt anger stir in her chest. "When does the cruise leave?" she asked quietly. Her mother brightened instantly. "Saturday morning. 12 days. Megan is thrilled. The suite even has a balcony." Jessica nodded slowly, already forming her plan. Her mother left soon after, still smiling proudly. Jessica waited until the door clicked shut, then opened her banking app again. The number glared at her. $10,800. Plus 3 years of free housing, repairs she'd paid for, bills she'd covered, emergencies she handled alone. It wasn't just money. It was a pattern she'd accepted for so long it felt normal. "Enjoy the cruise," she whispered to the empty room. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. She understood now that she had been the family's safety net her whole life. And finally she was ready to cut the net. Memories rose like smoke. Growing up, she had always been the responsible one, the girl who got good grades and never caused problems. Megan, 4 years younger, had been treated like a fragile princess. "She can't handle pressure," her mother always said. "You're stronger, Jessica." That strength became an excuse. Jessica gave up band so Megan could dance, watched her college fund shrink so Megan could get a car, worked 2 jobs while Megan quit school again and again. And somehow Jessica was still the selfish one whenever she tried to speak up. "Not anymore," she murmured to herself. Jessica sat on her couch and opened her laptop, pulling up her spreadsheet of past expenses. She whispered to herself, "How much have I really given them?" As she typed in numbers, mortgage payments, repairs, utilities, emergencies, the total grew painfully fast. She remembered calling them last Thanksgiving. "I can bring dinner," she had offered. Her mother sighed dramatically. "We can't afford gas, Jessica." Later that night she saw photos of them at an expensive Italian restaurant, smiling beside Megan. Jessica stared at the screen now and muttered, "I've been blind for too long." She inhaled slowly, feeling clarity settle inside her. The next morning, Jessica couldn't shake the heavy feeling in her chest. She picked up her phone and scrolled through the photos her mother had recently posted. There they were, her parents and Megan, standing on the cruise ship deck with champagne in their hands. The caption read, "Family vacation at last. Dreams do come true." Jessica whispered, "My money made your dreams come true." She zoomed in on Megan's bright smile, her new sundress, her perfectly styled hair. "They didn't even invite me," Jessica said softly. For the first time, the hurt felt sharp enough to push her into action. That night, Jessica searched her contacts until she found Patricia, the real estate agent who had helped her years ago. Her finger hovered over the call button. She whispered to herself, "Do I really want to do this?" Then she remembered her mother's smirk and Megan's endless demands. She pressed call. Patricia answered warmly, "Jessica. How are you?" Jessica kept her voice steady. "I'm calling about the house on Maple Street." Patricia's tone sharpened with interest. "Are you finally thinking about selling?" Jessica nodded even though Patricia couldn't see her. "Yes. I want to sell as soon as possible. Patricia pulled up the market numbers while Jessica listened. You could get around $280,000, Patricia explained. Maybe more depending on condition. Jessica swallowed. There's something you should know. My family lives there. No lease. No rent. Nothing written. Patricia paused. Jessica, are they aware you want to sell? Jessica shook her head. No. They're on a cruise for 12 days. Another pause. Then Patricia spoke carefully. It's possible to close fast with a cash buyer. It's aggressive but not impossible. Jessica felt a strange calmness. Then let's try. I'm ready to move forward. That evening, Jessica sat alone in her apartment, thinking about what she had set in motion. She pictured her parents returning from the cruise, walking up to the house, only to find new locks and papers taped to the door. A small part of her whispered, "Is this too cruel?" But another part answered firmly, "They never worried about how their choices hurt me." Jessica poured herself a glass of water and stared at the glow of her laptop screen. "I'm not the villain," she said softly. "I'm just done being used." And for the first time in years she felt steady. The next day, Jessica took a personal day from work and met Patricia at a quiet coffee shop. Patricia slid a folder across the table. "I made some calls. 3 potential buyers already showed interest. One is especially fast, his name is Gerald. Cash buyer. No questions asked." Jessica exhaled slowly. "How fast is fast?" Patricia leaned forward. 7 to 10 days. Jessica nodded, feeling her heart pound. "They're still on the cruise," she murmured. "They won't know anything." Patricia studied her carefully. "Jessica, this is a big step. Are you sure?" Jessica looked down. "I've never been more sure." They spent the next 2 hours reviewing documents, disclosures, agreements, estimated timelines. Patricia explained every step clearly. "Your family has no legal tenancy rights," she said gently. "No lease means no protections. Gerald would handle everything once the sale is complete." Jessica nodded, her hands trembling only slightly. "I appreciate your help," she whispered. Patricia gave her a soft smile. "This isn't about revenge, Jessica. It's about boundaries." Jessica inhaled deeply. "I've never had boundaries with them," she admitted. "But I'm learning." Before leaving, she signed the preliminary papers. A quiet thrill ran through her. The wheels were officially turning. That night, Jessica received another photo from her mother. Megan posing by the pool in a bright bikini holding a fruity drink. The caption read, "Living my best life." Jessica stared at the picture for a long moment, then gently set her phone down. She whispered, "Enjoy it. It's the last time you'll enjoy anything on my money." She returned to her laptop and reviewed the sale documents again. Every line she read made her feel lighter. "This is the first decision I've ever made for myself," she said quietly. The apartment felt unusually peaceful, like the air had finally cleared. 2 days later, Patricia emailed with news. "Gerald is ready. He'll offer $265, all cash, closing in 7 days." Jessica read the message twice. Her family wouldn't return for 11 days. This meant the sale would be complete before they even stepped off the ship. She whispered, "Perfect." She opened the digital document, stared at the signature line and hesitated only a moment. "This changes everything," she told herself. Then she signed. When the confirmation email arrived, Jessica placed a hand over her heart, feeling a calm she had never known. "It's done," she whispered. "It's finally done." The next afternoon, while sitting at her work desk, Jessica received the closing notice. The funds, over $240,000, were already processing. Gerald's team immediately changed the locks and posted official notices on the house door. Jessica imagined her family returning to find strangers' paperwork taped to the home they treated as their kingdom. A pang of guilt fluttered briefly, but it vanished as fast as it came. "They made their choices," she said under her breath. That evening she made herself dinner and lit a small candle on her table. For once her life belonged entirely to her. On Sunday morning, Jessica turned on her phone after leaving it off all night. Notifications exploded across the screen. 25 missed calls from her mother, several from her father, and long streams of messages. She braced herself and pressed play on the first voicemail. "Jessica, the door won't open." "Did you change the locks?" her mother snapped. The next message came minutes later, louder and sharper. There's a notice on the door about the property being sold. Call me now. Jessica sat calmly on her couch, sipping coffee. You're only surprised, she whispered, because you thought I'd never stand up. The later voicemails grew more frantic. Her father's shaky voice pleaded, Honey, your mother is upset. Please call us and explain. Then her mother returned, furious. How dare you do this to us? We are your parents. Another voicemail had her crying dramatically. We have nowhere to go, Jessica. Nowhere. Megan left 2 messages of her own, one screaming, You're a monster, and the other sobbing, Where am I supposed to sleep? Don't you care? Jessica listened to all of them without flinching. Not one of them said, We're sorry. Not one mentioned the $10,800 they had taken without permission. At noon, her mother shifted tactics. She sent a long message. Jessica, we understand you might be upset. Maybe the cruise charge was too much. We didn't mean harm. Let's meet and talk. Just us. Jessica read it twice. Still no apology. Still no accountability. Just manipulation wrapped in soft words. She typed her prepared response. You used my credit card without permission for a luxury vacation. I sold my property. Both were choices. Both have consequences. He sent it. Then with a steady breath she blocked her mother, her father and Megan across every platform. 3 days later they showed up at her apartment building. Jessica heard the pounding before she even reached the door. Jessica! Open this door right now, her mother shouted. Jessica stayed seated at her desk, continuing her work. You cannot ignore us. We are your family. Megan's voice cracked. Please, Jessica. Just talk to us. Neighbors peeked out as the shouting grew louder. After nearly 20 minutes, the noise finally stopped. When Jessica checked the hallway later, all that remained was a folded letter on the floor. She picked it up calmly, already sure it would change nothing. The letter was filled with guilt. Her mother wrote, Yes, we used your credit card, but we've always shared as a family. You never complained before. Is this really about money? We're suffering now, staying in a motel because of you. I raised you better than this. I will never forgive you, but if you want to fix things, call me. Jessica folded the letter neatly and placed it in her file of saved messages. No apology. No responsibility. Not one sentence acknowledging what they had done. She whispered, I'm finished carrying blame that never belonged to me. The following weeks were strangely quiet. Jessica learned through a distant cousin that her parents were staying with a relative, someone she barely remembered from childhood. It won't last, Jessica murmured. Her cousin added softly, They're telling everyone you betrayed them. Jessica expected that. Her mother had always rewritten stories to make herself the hero. But Jessica didn't defend herself. She no longer needed validation from people who never saw her value. Instead, she focused on rebuilding her own life, feeling the weight of years slowly lifting from her shoulders. Peace felt unfamiliar, but she welcomed it anyway. Jessica began therapy the next week. Her therapist listened carefully as she explained years of financial pressure, manipulation, and guilt. That's not normal family behavior, the therapist said gently. That's financial and emotional abuse. Jessica exhaled shakily. Hearing the words out loud made everything clearer. I thought helping them was my responsibility, Jessica confessed. The therapist shook her head. Helping is optional. Sacrifice is a choice. But what your family expected was control. Jessica left the session feeling raw but lighter. For the first time she saw her story not as failure, but as survival. With the house sold, Jessica began adjusting to a life without constant financial strain. She cooked meals she loved instead of whatever fit her tight budget. She reconnected with friends, laughing in ways she hadn't in years. She even started planning a small vacation, her first real one in a long time. Imagine that, she whispered, looking at places she had always dreamed of visiting. A trip, for me. She still paid the $10,800 cruise charge, but each payment reminded her of the boundary she finally set. This is the last thing I'll ever pay for them, she decided. 1 month after the sale, a letter arrived from a lawyer representing her mother. It accused Jessica of illegally evicting family members and demanded $100,000 for their suffering. Jessica felt her stomach tighten, but she forwarded it immediately to her own attorney. The lawyer called her within the hour. They have no case, she said firmly. No lease means no legal rights. The new owner followed proper procedures. This letter is intimidation, nothing more. Jessica closed her eyes in relief. So I don't need to respond? No, her attorney assured. Let them huff and puff. They have nothing. Weeks passed with no lawsuit confirming her attorney's prediction. Her mother's threats faded after realizing the law wasn't on her side. Meanwhile, Jessica continued living freely, discovering new routines that didn't revolve around constant crisis management. She enjoyed quiet mornings, long walks, and evenings without draining phone calls. She even started reading again, something she had stopped doing when her life became a revolving door of family emergencies. One afternoon, while holding a novel, she smiled to herself. This is what life feels like when I'm not drowning. 6 months later, Jessica learned from the same cousin that her parents had finally found a small apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Her father was applying for disability benefits, and Megan had moved in with yet another boyfriend. They're struggling, the cousin whispered carefully, as if expecting Jessica to swoop in and rescue them. Jessica simply replied, I hope they figure things out. And she meant it. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want them to suffer. She just refused to be their safety net anymore. Their lives were theirs now, not her responsibility. Jessica's own life, however, flourished. Therapy helped her untangle the years of guilt woven into her identity. She learned to say no without trembling. She learned that love without boundaries becomes servitude. She took a peaceful mountain vacation where she hiked, rested, and didn't answer a single call. She journaled by the window and wrote, I am free from who they told me I was. For the first time, she felt proud of the courage it took to walk away, proud of choosing herself after decades of being told she didn't matter. 8 months after everything, Jessica received an email at work. Somehow her mother had found her professional address. The message was a blend of accusation and plea. My health is failing, her mother wrote. I don't want to die with us on bad terms. Please come back to your family. Jessica read it slowly, searching for something real. An apology, accountability, even a hint of honesty. But there was none. The email twisted events, painted Jessica as cruel, and insisted she owed them reconciliation. Jessica closed the message and whispered, You still don't see what you did. She didn't reply. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. Instead, she deleted the email and returned to her work. She had learned that not every story required her participation. Through her cousin, she heard her mother was telling people Jessica abandoned them over money, leaving out years of taking advantage, manipulation, and entitlement. Jessica didn't correct the narrative. Her peace no longer depended on anyone believing her. She finally understood that their version of her had never been real. The real Jessica was someone they never bothered to know. By the end of the first year, Jessica felt like a completely different person. She no longer woke up with dread. She no longer carried the weight of 3 adults who refused to carry themselves. The house on Maple Street had been renovated and rented to a young couple, a detail that made her smile. Life goes on, she whispered. And so did hers. She understood now that selling the house wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming her life. Her family called it betrayal. Jessica called it freedom. And even if she could go back in time, she would choose the same path again. Jessica began building new routines that felt like small celebrations of independence. She tried new recipes, decorated her apartment, and created a savings plan that focused entirely on her future rather than someone else's crisis. On weekends, she visited quiet bookstores and coffee shops where no one demanded anything from her. One morning, while sipping tea by her window, she whispered, "This is what peace looks like." She finally had the mental space to think about dreams she had abandoned years ago. Travel, hobbies, friendships, and maybe even love someday. For the first time, her life belonged only to her. Her therapist encouraged her to reflect on the patterns she had survived. During one session, the therapist asked softly, "When did you start believing you owed them everything?" Jessica stared at her hands. "Since I was a child," she said quietly. "They convinced me I had to earn love." The therapist nodded gently. "You don't need to earn what should be freely given." Jessica felt tears sting her eyes. It was the first time someone had spoken the truth she had always been too afraid to claim. She walked out of the office that day feeling seen for the very first time. Her confidence grew slowly but steadily. She took up hiking again, something she used to love before her family consumed every spare minute and dollar. She joined a weekend book club and found herself laughing with strangers who soon became friends. "I forgot I could enjoy my own life," she admitted one evening. She even started looking at travel deals. Small trips first, then international destinations. The world suddenly felt bigger than the narrow, suffocating roles she had been forced into since childhood. Every day felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she thought she had lost forever. Meanwhile, updates about her family trickled in from the cousin who remained in contact with both sides. Her mother's health was slowly worsening, though no one could say how serious it was. Her father rarely left the apartment, still claiming back pain, and Megan was on her third boyfriend since moving out. "They're trying to reconnect with extended family," the cousin said awkwardly. "Looking for support." Jessica nodded politely. She wished them well in theory, but she no longer felt responsible for saving them. The cousin hesitated. "Do you ever think of going back?" Jessica answered simply, "No." Still, Jessica wasn't made of stone. Some nights she felt a familiar tug of guilt, a soft whisper asking, "Are you a bad daughter?" But then she would recall her mother's smirk as she dismissed the $10,800 charge, her father's complaints while she paid their bills, Megan's accusations whenever Jessica tried to set boundaries. She would whisper back, "I gave enough." Her therapist had taught her this truth. You cannot heal people who refuse to help themselves. Jessica finally understood that love doesn't require sacrificing your entire life. Especially not for people who never gave back even a fraction. Months later, the cousin sent Jessica a message saying her mother still insisted Jessica had betrayed them over money. Jessica didn't get angry. She didn't feel hurt. Instead, she felt a strange sadness, not for what she had lost but for what her family had always been. They never saw her as a person. They saw what she could give. She whispered, "That's not love." And she knew it was true. The version of Jessica her family spoke about wasn't real. The real Jessica was a woman who had finally chosen herself after decades of being treated like an endless resource. One quiet Saturday morning, Jessica drove past Maple Street for the first time in over a year. She didn't stop, just slowed enough to see the house from her window. Fresh paint. New flowers along the walkway. A young couple laughing on the porch. Her chest warmed. "Good," she whispered. "It has a real family now." She didn't feel grief or longing. She felt closure. The house that once symbolized her imprisonment now symbolized her freedom. She drove away with the windows down, letting the wind carry away the last pieces of a life she no longer belonged to. Jessica's life settled into something steady and beautiful. She traveled to a mountain cabin for a week, where she hiked at sunrise and read by the fireplace at night. She took a cooking class and discovered she loved making homemade pasta. She started planning a trip abroad, a dream she once thought was impossible. In her journal she wrote, "I'm creating a life that feels like mine." And it was true. For the first time, her story wasn't defined by someone else's chaos. It was defined by choice, intention, and a deep, quiet joy she had never been allowed to feel. Occasionally, Jessica wondered if her family ever understood why she left. Maybe someday they would. Maybe they never would. But she no longer needed their apology to move forward. Their version of events belonged to them. Her truth belonged to her. She learned that healing didn't always come with perfect closure. Sometimes it came from accepting that not everyone will understand your boundaries and enforcing them anyway. She whispered to herself, "I finally chose me." And those words felt like a key unlocking the last door inside her heart. Looking back, Jessica understood that selling the house wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of survival. For 32 years she had carried a burden no one thanked her for. She had given everything and received only guilt in return. But the day she signed the papers, she reclaimed her future. Her family called it betrayal. Jessica called it freedom. And as she walked forward into a life built on peace, independence, and self-respect, she knew she would never regret it. If given the chance again, she would choose the same path, every single time. Because saving herself was worth everything.